Today we're going to be looking at Anastasia's mate. So here's the answer to last week's puzzle, where you had to find the Bowden's mate. And if you don't know what that is, you can check out last week's video, which is in the card I'm just about to show right now, if you look on the top right of your screen. And the answer would be bishop to a6, checkmate. And it's because the king can't move to d8 or d7 because of the pawns there. The king can't move to b8 or c7 because of the bishop on f4. And the king is in check thanks to the bishop on a6, and also can't move to the b7 square because of the bishop on a6. Therefore, this is checkmate, and since there's nothing to block and there's nothing to capture the bishop on a6, this is checkmate. Anastasia's mate is when the knight and the rook work together to checkmate the king in a specific way. Just one opposing piece is involved other than the king, and it's usually a pawn. In this checkmating pattern, the king is on the edge, the knight is on 3 squares away from the king, covering the diagonals, and the rook is on the edge, checking the king, and also the squares to the side of the king. I know that this definition can be confusing, so I recommend seeing the example and then coming back to this definition to help clear it up for you. So, here's an example of Anastasia's mate. If you look closely, you can see the knight on e7 is covering the g8 square and the g6 square. The king can't move to g7 because the pawn is there, which is the opposing piece that's involved. In this case, it's also a pawn. And the king can't move to h8 or h6 because of the rook on h5, and he's in check. Nothing can block. Nothing can capture the rook. So this is checkmate. And this is an example of Anastasia's mate. So in this position, it is black to play, and black can mate in one white. So using Anastasia's mate, you have 30 seconds to figure it out. You can always pause the video if you need more time, but your time starts now. Time is up. The correct move is rook to h4, checkmate. This is Anastasia's mate, and it looks similar to the last position with the knight and the rook and the king and all. So the king can't move to g2 because that square is occupied by the g2 pawn. The king can't move to g1 or g3 because the knight on e2 controls both those squares. And note that it's 3 squares away from the king. The knight is. The king can't move to h1 or h3 because the rook on h4 is controlling both the squares. And the king can't capture anything, really, because they're too far away. Nothing else can capture the rook. The king is in check. So this is checkmate. And this is another example of Anastasia's mate. So let's move on to our next slide, where it's white to play, and white can do Anastasia's mate. So it's similar to the other two positions we looked at. You have 30 seconds. You can always pause the video if you need more time, but your time starts now. time is up. The correct move is rook to h1, checkmate. This is Anastasia's mate because the king is in check thanks to the h1 rook. The king can't move to h8 or h6 because the rook controls both those squares. The h1 rook, I mean. The king can't move to g8 or g6 because the knight on e7 controls both the squares. And the king can't move to g7 because there is a block pawn on g7 and the square is occupied. There's nothing to block the check or capture the rook. So this is checkmate. Let's move on to our next puzzle, which is your turn. So white can do an Anastasia's mate to black, and the answer will be in next video. Thanks for watching this far into the video, and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any feedback, you can post it in the comments or in the form in the description of all videos. The form is completely anonymous, so I won't know who filled it out. Please hit that like button, subscribe for more videos like this one, because it takes a lot of time and effort to make these videos. You can visit the chess playlist to see all of the chess videos. Thanks to R Meows for commenting on the video Arabian Mate, and I hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.